is Jillian Sidoti from crowdfundinglawyers.net. One of our speakers from last year, Jordan Fishfeld from CFX Markets, is here to join us today. Hi, Jordan.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. And you know why I'm so excited to have you is because you are really, truly a pioneer in this industry. You have something that I feel like no one else really has. So why don't you tell us a little bit about CFX Markets?
Yeah, so again, thanks so much for having me. I definitely feel like I've been around the industry for a long time and been able to learn a lot. And now at CFX Markets, we're excited to take the industry to kind of the next level. CFX Markets is a secondary market platform that allows people who have purchased limited partnerships and kind of fractional ownerships throughout the online capital raising world to access liquidity if and when it becomes necessary. We do this through either direct sellers who come to our portal and list their security from anywhere, and we also have integrations and links with certain portals throughout the industry where you can kind of sell it directly from whence you bought it. But again, for us, we're really excited. We've seen this industry kind of grow and evolve, and now we feel providing this level of liquidity is a great next step to more significant adoption.
So I got a little excited there in the middle of you talking because you said something very key, which is that you're directly integrated with some platforms. Does that mean like if I go on certain platforms, certain crowdfunding platforms, buy something, then I can automatically be linked into the CFX Markets platform and resell that security on the date that I'm allowed to resell it?
Correct, and that's a key point, on the date that you're allowed to resell it. So this is not the intent that, like some of the ICOs going on where you're going to buy it and then sell it a day later. There's still that holding period. There's still the intent of holding it for your own account. All of those securities rules that we're all familiar with all still exist. But yeah, if you purchase an asset and on the date that you're allowed to sell it or some date, beyond that, a need for liquidity comes through, and there's a lot of reasons why that happens, right? An unexpected expense, a debt that came due that you weren't expecting, and other some more tragic situations. Our platform allows for you to actually go through the native portal, click sell, and actually directly list your product. We're able to access the information directly from the issuer portal, so that you really have a very easy process. Now, if you're not in one of those integrated portals, and we're obviously expecting to grow the number of integrations and innovations, but integrations specifically, you can obviously always upload that information to the system, and we'll go ahead, match a buyer, effect, clear, settle, and transfer the assets and the capital to the respective parties. But it was a great point and a great note that it is on the date that you're allowed to sell it, and not just at any point. We're not trying to make this, these aren't necessarily public securities in some instances, depending on how you define Reg A. It's definitely not public, but this is really meant for those people that are really in need of liquidity, are no longer able to hold on. We provide that access point for liquidity.
That's really great. Now, I have so many questions, but I really want to think less about myself and more about the audience, so maybe I'll ask you later. But my first question for my audience is, you used to run a very successful crowdfunding platform, Pure Realty. Tell us how you got that started, and what advice would you give somebody who's looking to start their own crowdfunding platform?
Yeah, so we got involved in the industry, my partner and I, Vaughn, very early on. Before that, I was an attorney, like I think one or two of the other founders in the space and of the large portals. We just saw this change in securities law that was really revolutionary, that hadn't happened in any significant fashion in 70 plus years. Looked around and said, how are people going to use this? I loved real estate, and so we built the Pure Realty portal, kind of focused on something a little different than some of the other crowdfunding portals, but very similar to Realty Shares, Realty Mogul, Fundrise, in that we wanted to create high quality investment opportunities and give it broader reach to the investor base. So not really democratizing access to capital, but democratizing investment opportunities is really kind of the shift, I think.
That's great.
And part of the build and part of the features that Pure Realty had developed was this secondary market function. So if you had purchased an asset on Pure Realty after the required holding period, and if there was ever a need for you to sell it, we had this feature where you can kind of sell it internally. We kind of, as we were growing and as the industry was getting more and more competitive, and as more capital was flushing into it, we realized that this feature could actually be a really great industry tool, and started talking to some of my other kind of colleagues in the industry who are running other portals. And obviously the first step and really the first question they had was, well, I'm not going to send you my investors to sell this through your portal. So we have to figure out a way to separate those two. And so that's what we ended up doing. We separated the company, kind of pitched the CFX feature, the secondary market feature, as a new company. And as that started to gain the support of the industry and the support of the investor base, we thought it was a really great time to transition. And so we sold Pure Realty, and we're excited now to focus, exclusively on CFX Markets and bring in a lot of those, into this market and allow their investors to access liquidity when and if they need it.
It's so important too, because so many of these deals, you just don't know how you're going to get out of them. And if the issuer doesn't plan on getting listed on the OTC markets or, some other marketplace, there's just no way. And even then, when they get listed on the OTC markets, there's no guarantee of liquidity. So, and also it represents a great opportunity for people who wanted to get into something and miss the boat. Now they have that opportunity to get into it.
And, I think that one of the great opportunities that we see as well, and what we saw at Pure Realty, when you're looking at real estate, which most real estate funds and real estate deals aren't going to list on OTC, that's more of a perpetual fund, and we're more kind of a closed-end fund liquidity marketplace. But, if you think of the life cycle of a real estate transaction, which is our main focus, there's usually a significant J curve and kind of risk, capital expenditure, lease up, and then stabilization. And so and then there's that hold period. And for sponsors, they're actually now required in most instances, in order to raise new money or to not get sued, to sell the asset at year 7, year 8, whatever it is, even though it might be pushing off beautiful cash flow in an unbelievable location. And so now the sponsor can say, you know what, I'm not going to sell this, but if you want to access liquidity as a limited partner, here's an option. The buyers now would transition from more of those risk-taking, kind of I'm okay with that J curve, to a more kind of conservative investor who's just looking at a cash flow play. And so now the actual profile of the investor can shift to its most efficient use case. And so for us, liquidity can be not just a means of, exiting a deal but also allocating your capital to the risk profile that makes the most sense for you. And so for me, as a young, earning person, I love development deals because they're highly risky and highly profitable if they work. And so if I can get into a development deal and sell it the day that the certificate of occupancy is issued, make my return and just do it again, that's fantastic. And then my mom or my dad can buy it for the cash flow, and they can get their 7% and I can get my 18, and I'll lose definitely more than they will, because they're kind of already past the development risk. But that's where really, when this market starts to interact the way it should, that's where I see a significant opportunities for sponsors to not be pressured by investors into selling, and really create that long-term generational wealth that real estate can provide through holding on to investments, ensuring that cash flow, refinancing constantly, buying new. And you can't do that if you're beholden to a group of investors who need their cash.
Sure. So let me ask you something. And I don't want to get into the weeds too much on this, but are these offerings, generally speaking, pursuant to Rule 144?
So it really depends on how the asset was structured on the original offering. So we do a lot of actual publicly registered, non-listed securities as well. That's a significant portion of our business, the traditional REIT business. And so in those cases, there's a trading infrastructure that's not necessarily within 140, but otherwise in some of the Reg D, yes, and so that's how we've structured the organization. It really depends on how the asset was originally issued.
So I just thought of something interesting, and you can correct me if I'm off base on this, but is it possible then, let's say they're like, I think about the bigger REITs or like core type funds where their minimum investment requirements are incredibly high. So it sounds like to me, CFX might give a smaller investor, someone who has say $50,000 to $100,000 or $25,000 or $10,000, an opportunity to come on and buy a portion of an original investor's interests without having to come up with that minimum investment requirement. Is that accurate?
So there is that opportunity, and in this case, so let's say for example, right now, you are a large buyer, you bought $100,000 position in a large building in California, let's say.
Sure.
We'd have to work with the sponsor to ensure Investment Company Act requirements and the number of investors aren't a problem.
Sure.
But otherwise, yeah, that $100,000 position is listed on the platform. Investors are able to match. And if you had a $5,000 order at a higher price, and we won't sell any part until the entire block is matched. We don't want the buyer stuck with even a little bit. So we actually have to match the whole block before the trade is executed. And so usually it comes down to one or two buyers, but in some instances for that large amount, it could be a number. But we do ensure that the seller's entire block is sold before the match. And that usually takes us, a day and a half for the system.
Now, I don't know how many of our viewers would be curious about this, but I'm going to ask the question anyhow. What kind of hoops did CFX have to, we know the hoops that a crowdfunding platform has to jump through, depending on which exemption or registration or what have you they're using on their platform. But what kind of hoops did CFX have to go through since you're not offering original securities? Did you have to go through the SEC? Did you have to go through FINRA? What did you have to do?
Yeah, so we're a FINRA registered broker dealer, and all of our securities are cleared and kind of sold through our broker dealer. And so we had to get a kind of special line of business related to the secondary market trading of securities, of private and public securities.
Okay.
And then we've had them kind of review and audit our system. So it was a very intensive process to actually get off the ground.
I'm sure.
And
FINRA,
and we're continuing to scale that up, and the idea is eventually, do we go kind of full blown exchange or kind of stay at the trading system that we are.
Right.
And so really the real fun part of what our system is able to do now, and that we're hoping FINRA will get comfortable with, is we've actually a big part of our technology development and our innovation is around a distributed ledger reporting protocol layer for all of the trades that have access points into FINRA. And so we want to be the first real-time alternative asset reporting system that exists, so that one, we don't have FINRA coming to our house every year for a month and just wasting time.
Why?
And two, it's so much fun. And then two, we think it's appropriate. We can do it. Our technology is capable of doing it. And if FINRA wants, if we get a customer complaint and FINRA wants to review it, they can go straight to the ledger, lock down the trade, take all of the information, review it, ensure compliance, and then let the person know, actually, I see your face from our video camera while you're signing it. There's no way that it wasn't you, and just kind of deal with the problem much easier than us having to defend it.
That's
so a lot
really cool.
Yeah, really great ways. We're still working with them on actually, they've they've touched it, but they still come to our offices, and we're trying to really push that forward. And there's a few other distributed ledger and blockchain initiatives that really make sense for a trading platform. And so, that type of innovation in this space, and because this space is both innovative but also archaic at the same time, and I mean that in the real estate market, it's fantastic for us because there's a lot of need and desire to move forward, and there's not a lot of disastrous legacy systems to fight with. And so we can actually just create the gold standard. And that's what we've all been doing in this industry, right? We've all been saying, how do we want to accredit investors? Okay, we really want to go deep and make sure that investors are accredited. We have Verify Investor, and we had Credentials and all of these firms that made sure that was being done appropriately. We want to have appropriate Reg D offering documents. We have very focused firms that do that. And this is kind of the next step, knowing that we are going to be scrutinized, ensuring the highest level of compliance, the highest level of security and innovation is kind of always on our mind.
I want to ask you a lot more questions, and I specifically want to ask you something about what you said about blockchain and cryptocurrency, because that's really interesting. We're kind of running out of time, but tell me something a little bit about how you can use cryptocurrency on CFX Markets.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, there's going to be a time when a lot of transactions are made using either Bitcoin or some of the other currencies, Dash, if you will, and Litecoin. For us, though, the underlying technology of crypto, which is blockchain and distributed ledger technology, is actually uniquely applicable to what we're trying to do, and why we're super excited about its kind of adoption. Being able to instantaneously verify ownership. So for those that are managing their cap table, if they're managing it on an open ledger system with tokenized ownership structures, and now you want to sell your private interest, but it's tokenized, that becomes far more easy than for me to verify with sponsor and ensure that he's going to pay the right people going forward. And so where distributed ledger and blockchain technology come in for us, is just kind of solving the verification of ownership, the transfer process, the clearing and settlement, and the payment distribution. That all is handled through smart contracts and through blockchain. And then obviously there's the fun, exciting opportunity of actually being able to buy stuff with Bitcoin, which I continue to see as a really exciting opportunity for those early adopters.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, I was just so Bitcoin resistant, and then I saw it go up to $5,700.
It's up to $7,400 now.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I just made
it's
money
a little wild right now. I'm not gonna lie. There's some some exuberance out there, but depending on which side of the boat you're on, whether you see it as the safest storage for value, or you see it as a kind of speculative investment, is where you think what you should do. Because speculatively, at some point, it's got to crash. But if you believe that it's a better storage value than gold, and it has more use and more transferability, less cost in storage than gold, then why wouldn't you store all value in Bitcoin versus gold? And then it's not even a tenth of the market cap it should be. So that's where it gets really exciting.
Well, it's funny because I don't just see the Bitcoin valuations going through the roof, but I also see a lot of people being prosecuted for the misuse of Bitcoin as well. I get a little pop-up on my screen every couple of hours, and it talks about somebody who's being there's white collar crime regarding Bitcoin, or there's even not just white collar crime, but really serious crimes being committed with the use of Bitcoin. So
yes,
it's not all that private. Just everybody out there know that it's not. It's cryptocurrency, but they will find you, the man.
I think that's right. There's definitely a lot of its growth has been from the underbelly of society, and the question is, does it leap into mainstream or not? And I have no idea. I don't want to speculate. I have my theories, and I put my money where my mouth is, so I'm where I am. But I literally have no idea. But again, the underlying technology what Ethereum has been able to do and somewhat of what the other smart contract protocol layers have been able to do is so exciting for those of us in kind of financial services and exchange technology that it almost doesn't even matter what happens with Bitcoin. That technology is here to stay, and it's here to change the way things are processed, managed, transferred. So super exciting.
Sure. No, that's awesome. And Jordan, I want to thank you so much. And I want to end today's interview by asking you the question I ask all of my victims, if you will. What books do you recommend to our listeners, watchers? I know you're a huge reader, so that's probably a really difficult question for you. So, but lay it on us.
Yeah. So the last 2 books I've read, I'll start there, were Sam Zell's Am I Being Too Subtle? That's a Chicago real estate guy, really funny read. And Alexa von Strobel's Financially Fearless. So she was a connection that was made to me by an investor. Love what she was able to build at LearnVest, and just wanted to read something from her. And so those are the last books I've read. As far as kind of just favorite books, I'm more of a biography and history buff. They're kind of boring. So World War II books I love, and biographies on Eisenhower and JFK. So it's just really doesn't. I wouldn't say they're too exciting. To be exciting, the most exciting book I think I've read is probably The Hunger Games.
No, I think
a little bit back.
No, I know Sam Zell. I am familiar with him, and I'm very familiar with Alexa von Koval. I listened to her program on Sirius XM, so I definitely know who she is, and her website learnvest.com.
She's I haven't gotten to meet her. And would love to, and so no, that's kind of my reading right now. I should probably throw some more light reading in there at some point, but I'll get there.
Hey, listen, I remember I remember I read this book literally written by the Pope, and it was like his dissertation, and it was all about what was it? It was about like corruption in society and how
current Pope or last Pope?
The current Pope.
Okay.
About how it was about corruption in society, how it differentiates from sin, and we can't accept corruption. It was a really difficult, deep book to read. And then a friend recommended another book that was much lighter reading, and I read that book next, and it was like coming from the space of like just being my head on fire to like, I don't know if it was an up or a down. I can't determine, but it is funny when you read something that's really heavy and then go from that to something that's really a lot lighter, and how your brain processes it. So I get what you're saying.
So I might go with like a comedy book, like Nick Offerman puts out pretty good books from Parks and Rec. So that might be something a little bit more comedic after these 2. Although Sam Zell is actually not that bad. He's got some light in it. So
awesome.
That one's a good one to go through too. But thank you so much, Jillian. I appreciate the time.
Oh, thank you for coming. Thank you. And everybody, we've been talking to Jordan Fishfeld from CFX Markets, and please check out his website and just Google CFX Markets. You can find out how to buy securities on the secondary market on his website. And thanks everyone. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Jordan.
Thanks so much. Have a good day.
Bye.